The restaurant was quiet, the kind of place where soft jazz played in the background and every table gleamed with polished silverware. Rachel Carter sat alone at a corner table, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of coffee. She looked out the window, watching the city lights flicker like stars against the dark sky. Manhattan always had a way of making life feel both big and small at the same time, but tonight none of that mattered to her. Tonight was different. Rachel wasn't here for the food or the view. She was here because this date marked 10 years since her daughter Lily disappeared. 10 long years of unanswered questions, sleepless nights, and endless searching. The pain hadn't dulled, it had only shifted, settling deep into her heart like a heavy stone she carried everywhere she went. Even now, surrounded by luxury and wealth, Rachel felt empty. Her phone buzzed on the table, but she ignored it. It was probably another message from her assistant reminding her about tomorrow's meetings, or an investor calling to discuss opportunities. None of it mattered right now. All Rachel wanted was a moment of peace, though she knew peace would never truly come until she found answers about Lily. As she sipped her coffee, a young woman approached her table. She wore the uniform of the Yao restaurant, a crisp white shirt and black apron, but something about her seemed out of place. Her clothes were clean but slightly worn, as if they'd been washed too many times. Her blonde hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and her face carried a warmth that made people feel instantly comfortable. "Good evening," she said with a smile. "Can I get you anything else?" Rachel glanced up briefly before shaking her head. "No, thank you," she replied politely. But then, just as the waitress turned to leave, Rachel froze. Her eyes locked onto something around the young woman's neck, a necklace. It wasn't expensive or flashy, just a simple silver locket hanging on a thin chain. Yet it was enough to stop Rachel's breath. That locket, it couldn't be. Could it? Rachel stared, unable to look away. Every detail matched. The delicate, floral engravings, the tiny clasp at the top, even the faint scratch near the hinge. She remembered buying it years ago, picking it out specially for Lily's 6th birthday. She had spent hours searching through stores until she found the perfect one, something unique and meaningful. On the morning of Lily's birthday, Rachel had handed it to her with a hug, telling her how much she loved her, and then the next day Lily was gone. Rachel blinked, trying to shake the memories flooding her mind. No, it wasn't possible. This had to be some sort of coincidence. Necklaces like this weren't rare, were they? Still, she couldn't ignore the feeling gnawing at her insides. Something about this situation felt wrong, or maybe, just maybe, it felt right in a way she hadn't dared hope for. "Excuse me," Rachel called softly, stopping the waitress before she could walk away. The young woman turned back, looking surprised but polite. "Yes, ma'am?" "That necklace," Rachel began hesitantly. "Where did you get it?" The waitress touched the locket absently, almost as if she hadn't noticed it until now. "Oh, this?" she said with a small laugh. "It's kind of special to me. My foster, Mom gave it to me when I turned 18. She said it used to belong to someone important, but she didn't tell me who. Foster mom. Someone important." The words echoed in Rachel's ears, each one striking a chord deep inside her. Foster care. That was exactly what she had feared, all those years ago, that whoever took Lily had abandoned her somewhere, leaving her to grow up without knowing who she truly was. Was it possible that this girl standing in front of her, smiling so innocently, could somehow be connected to Lily? Rachel forced herself to stay calm. She couldn't jump to conclusions, not yet, but she needed to know more. "Do you mind if I ask your name?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "Emma," the waitress replied. "Emma Miller." "Emma," Rachel repeated, testing the name on her tongue. It didn't sound familiar, but that didn't mean anything. Names could change over time, especially for children in foster care. "How long have you worked here?" "About 6 months," Emma answered. "I'm saving up for school. I want to study nursing." Rachel nodded, impressed despite herself. There was something genuine about Emma, her kindness, her work ethic, the way she carried herself with quiet confidence. If this really was Lily, she had grown into a remarkable young woman. But Rachel couldn't let herself think like that. Not yet. I see, Rachel said finally. Well, Emma, thank you for bringing me my coffee. And I hope you don't mind me saying this, but that necklace suits you. Emma smiled again, clearly pleased by the compliment. Thank you. I've always liked it too. It makes me feel, I don't know, like it has a story or something. A story. Yes, Rachel thought bitterly. It certainly does. After Emma walked away, Rachel sat there for a long time staring at the spot where the young waitress had stood. Her mind raced with possibilities, doubts, and fears. What if this was just a cruel twist of fate? What if the locket really was just a coincidence, but what if it wasn't? What if, after all these years, fate had finally brought her daughter back to her? Rachel reached for her phone and opened her contacts. She scrolled through the list until she found the number she needed. With trembling fingers, she dialed. When the call connected, she spoke quickly, her voice firm despite the storm raging inside her. I need your help, she said. There's someone I need you to look into. Her name is Emma Miller. The next few days passed in a blur for Rachel. She couldn't stop thinking about Emma and the locket. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the young waitress standing there, smiling innocently, completely unaware of the turmoil brewing inside Rachel. Was it possible that Emma was Lily? Could fate really be so cruel and yet so kind as to bring her daughter back after all these years? Rachel tried to focus on work, but her mind kept drifting. Meetings dragged on longer than they should have, and her colleagues noticed her distraction. Are you okay? One of them asked during a conference call. Rachel forced a smile and nodded. I'm fine, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. But how could she explain what she was feeling? Even to herself, it sounded impossible. Finally, 2 days after their encounter at the restaurant, Rachel decided to take matters into her own hands. She returned to the same place, hoping to see Emma again. This time, she chose a table near the entrance where she could observe without being too obvious. As she waited, sipping another cup of coffee, her heart raced every time someone walked through the door. What would she say if Emma appeared? How would she even begin to ask the questions burning inside her? It wasn't long before Emma emerged from the kitchen, carrying a tray of drinks. Rachel watched as she moved gracefully between tables, chatting with customers and taking orders. There was something natural about the way Emma interacted with people, warm, friendly, and genuine. It reminded Rachel of Lily, who had always been quick to make friends wherever she went. When Emma approached her table, Rachel felt a lump form in her throat. Good evening, Emma said with a smile. Can I get you anything today? Rachel hesitated for a moment, then shook her head. No, thank you, she replied softly. Actually, I was wondering, do you remember me? From the other night? Emma tilted her head, studying Rachel's face. Then recognition dawned, and she smiled again. Of course. You're the lady who complimented my necklace. Yes, Rachel said, managing a small laugh. That's right. About the necklace. I've been thinking about what you said. You mentioned it has a story. Would you mind telling me more? Emma looked surprised by the question but didn't hesitate to answer. Well, like I told you before, my foster mom gave it to me when I turned 18. She said it belonged to someone special, but she never explained who. I guess it's just one of those things. You know, keepsakes that get passed down. Rachel nodded slowly, absorbing every word. Do you think your foster mom might know more about its history? I don't know, Emma admitted. She passed away last year. Cancer. She was the only family I ever really knew, so losing her hit me hard. Before she died, we talked a lot about my past, but she didn't share many details. All I know is that I ended up in foster care when I was very young. No one ever came looking for me. As Emma spoke, Rachel's chest tightened. The pieces were starting to fit together, but she still needed proof. She couldn't accuse this girl of being her daughter based on a hunch or a necklace. That wouldn't be fair to either of them. Emma, Rachel said gently, would you mind sitting down for a moment? After your shift ends, of course. Emma raised an eyebrow, clearly puzzled. Sure. Why not? An hour later, Emma joined, Rachel at her table. They sat across from each other, the air thick with unspoken questions. Rachel took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. Emma, I need to tell you something, she began. This isn't easy for me, but I feel like I owe you an explanation. Emma leaned forward slightly, intrigued. Okay. Rachel reached into her purse and pulled out a faded photograph. It showed a little girl with curly blonde hair and bright blue eyes clutching a stuffed bunny rabbit. In the picture, the girl wore the same silver locket that now hung around Emma's neck. This is my daughter Lily, Rachel said, her voice trembling. She disappeared 10 years ago. The day before she went missing, I gave her that exact necklace. Emma stared at the photo, her expression unreadable. For a moment, silence hung between them like a heavy curtain. Then Emma whispered, You think I'm her? I don't know, Rachel admitted. But the resemblance is striking, and the necklace, it's too much of a coincidence. I have to find out if there's any truth to this. Emma blinked rapidly, trying to process what she was hearing. I don't know what to say. I mean, I grew up in foster care. I always assumed my parents didn't want me or couldn't take care of me. But no one ever told me I was kidnapped or anything like that. Rachel nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I hired private investigators for years searching for Lily. We followed every lead, checked every report, but nothing panned out. Eventually, I stopped believing I'd ever see her again. Until now. Emma glanced down at the locket, running, her fingers over its surface. What happens next? She asked quietly. We do a DNA test, Rachel said firmly. If you're my daughter, I'll know for sure. And if you're not, well, at least I'll have closure. Emma hesitated, then nodded. All right, let's do it. Over the next few days, Rachel arranged everything. She contacted a trusted lab and made sure the process would be discreet and thorough. Emma agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a quiet park near the city, to give her sample. When they arrived, Emma seemed nervous but determined. As they sat on a bench overlooking a pond, Rachel couldn't help but notice the similarities between Emma and Lily. Their mannerisms, the way they held themselves, it was uncanny. But she reminded herself not to get her hopes up. Not yet. After collecting the samples, Rachel promised to contact Emma as soon as the results came in. Thank you for doing this, she said sincerely. I know it must be overwhelming. It is, Emma admitted. But I need answers too. If there's even a chance I'm your daughter, I want to know. Rachel reached out and squeezed Emma's hand. Whatever happens, I'm glad I met you. Waiting for the results was agony. Rachel barely slept, pacing her apartment and replaying every interaction with Emma in her mind. What if the test proved negative? What if Emma wanted nothing to do with her afterward? And what if, against all odds, it came back positive? Finally, the call came. Rachel answered immediately, her heart pounding. Hello? Ms. Carter, the lab technician said. We have the results. Rachel held her breath. And? There was a pause, and then the technician spoke the words Rachel had waited a decade to hear. The DNA matches. Emma Miller is your biological daughter. Tears streamed down Rachel's face as she sank onto the couch. It was true. Her baby was alive. Against all odds, Lily had come back to her. Now the real challenge began, reuniting with a daughter who didn't even know she existed. Rachel sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The lab's words echoed in her mind. The DNA matches. Emma Miller is your biological daughter. It was real. After 10 years of searching, of hoping, and praying her baby, her Lily, was alive. But now what? How do you tell someone they've been living a lie their entire life? How do you explain that everything they thought they knew about themselves isn't true? She drove to the park where she and Emma had agreed to meet after the test results came back. As she parked, Rachel caught sight of herself in the rearview mirror. Her eyes were red from crying, but there was also a spark of hope, a light she hadn't felt in years. She took a deep breath, wiped her face with a tissue, and stepped out of the car. Emma was already there, sitting on the same bench by the pond where they'd met before. She looked nervous, fidgeting with the locket around her neck as if it held all the answers. When she saw Rachel approaching, she stood up, her expression unreadable. "Hey," Emma said softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Did you hear anything?" Rachel nodded, unable to speak right away. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder containing the test results. "Yes," she finally managed to say. "I heard back, and Emma, I need you to sit down for this." Emma hesitated but complied, sinking back onto the bench. Rachel sat beside her, clutching the folder like it was a lifeline. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the rustling leaves overhead and the distant chirping of birds. "I don't know how to say this," Rachel began, her voice trembling. "But the test confirmed something extraordinary. Emma, you're my daughter, my Lily." Emma stared at her, wide-eyed and silent. For several seconds it seemed like the world stopped moving. Then she shook her head slowly, as if trying to clear it. "Wait. What? That can't be right. I mean, I grew up in foster care. No one ever told me I was kidnapped or adopted or anything like that." "It's true," Rachel insisted gently. 10 years ago, my daughter disappeared. She was 6 years old, and she was wearing that necklace, the same one you're wearing now. We searched everywhere, but we couldn't find her. Until now." Emma touched the locket again, her fingers tracing its edges. "This whole time," she murmured almost to herself, "this whole time I thought I was just nobody, someone no one wanted." "Oh, Emma," Rachel whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You were never nobody. You were always my little girl. I never stopped looking for you. Not for a single day." Emma looked away, her emotions swirling visibly across her face: shock, confusion, disbelief, and maybe even a flicker of hope. "Why would anyone take me?" she asked quietly. "And why leave me in foster care? Why not keep me?" Rachel sighed, her heart breaking all over again. "I wish I had answers, but I don't. All I know is that you're safe now and I'm here. If you'll let me, I want to make things right." Emma didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stared out at the water, her thoughts clearly racing. Finally, she turned back to Rachel. "What happens next?" she asked. "Do I just stop being Emma and start being Lily? Do I forget everything I've ever known?" "No," Rachel said firmly. "You don't have to give up who you are. Being Emma doesn't erase being Lily. It adds to it. You're still the strong, kind, amazing person you've become. All I'm asking is that you let me be part of your life. Let me help you figure out who you are and where you came from." Emma nodded slowly, though she still looked uncertain. "Okay," she said. "But this is going to take some time. I need to process everything." "I understand," Rachel replied. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." Over the next few weeks, Rachel and Emma began meeting regularly. At first, their conversations were awkward, filled with long pauses and unanswered questions, but gradually they started opening up to each other. Rachel showed Emma photo albums, home videos, and keepsakes from her childhood. Each item brought new waves of emotion for both of them: joy, sadness, and sometimes anger. One afternoon, as they sat together in Rachel's penthouse apartment, Emma picked up an old stuffed bunny rabbit from the coffee table. "Is this mine?" she asked, holding it up. Rachel smiled through her tears. "Yes. That was your favorite toy. You carried it everywhere, even to bed." Emma examined the bunny closely, running her fingers over its worn fur. "It feels familiar," she admitted, "like I remember holding it even though I don't actually remember." "That's because it's part of you," Rachel said gently. "Deep down, you've always been Lily. This is just reconnecting the pieces." As they continued spending time together, Emma began to notice small things that made her feel connected to Rachel and to her past. The way Rachel laughed reminded her of her own laugh. Their shared love for certain foods, books, and songs felt like clues pointing to a bond she hadn't realized existed. Slowly but surely, Emma started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she really was Lily. But it wasn't easy. There were moments when doubt crept in, when Emma wondered if she was making a mistake by trusting Rachel. What if none of this was true? What if she was setting herself up for disappointment? These fears kept her guarded, even as she allowed herself to grow closer to Rachel. One evening, as they prepared dinner together in Rachel's kitchen, Emma finally voiced her concerns. "What if I can't live up to what you expect?" she asked, chopping vegetables carefully. "What if I'm not the daughter you remember?" Rachel stopped stirring the pot and turned to face her. "Emma, listen to me. I don't expect you to be anyone other than who you are. Yes, I miss the little girl I lost, but I also see the incredible woman you've become. That's enough for me. More than enough." Emma looked down at the cutting board, blinking back, tears. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me, for finding me." Rachel walked over and hugged her tightly. "I'll always believe in you, Lily. Always." Despite the progress they were making, Rachel knew there was still work to be done. Rebuilding a relationship after so many years apart wouldn't happen overnight. They needed to learn how to trust each other again, how to communicate openly and honestly. But for the first time in a decade, Rachel felt hopeful. Her daughter was alive, and they had a second chance. A chance to create new memories, heal old wounds, and build a future together. As they sat down to eat the meal they'd prepared, Rachel raised her glass of wine. "To new beginnings," she said with a smile. Emma raised her water glass, returning the smile tentatively. "To finding our way back," she added. And for the first time in years, both women felt like they were exactly where they were meant to be. The weeks turned into months, and Rachel and Emma began to settle into a rhythm. At first, their meetings were cautious, filled with polite conversations and awkward silences. But as time went on, they grew more comfortable around each other. Rachel learned about Emma's life in foster care, the challenges she faced, the people who shaped her, and the dreams she had for the future. In return, Emma listened intently as Rachel shared stories about Lily's childhood, painting a picture of the little girl she used to be. Still, there were moments when doubt lingered between them. For Emma, it was hard to reconcile the person she thought she was with the identity Rachel was offering her. She often found herself staring at old photos of Lily, searching for traces of herself in the smiling face of a 6-year-old she couldn't remember being. Sometimes she felt like an imposter, as if stepping into Lily's shoes meant leaving behind the only life she'd ever known. One Saturday afternoon, Rachel invited Emma to visit her childhood home, a sprawling estate nestled in the countryside. "I want you to see where you grew up," Rachel explained as they drove along winding roads lined with tall trees. "Even if you don't remember it, maybe it'll feel familiar." When they arrived, Emma stepped out of the car and looked up at the house. It was beautiful. White columns framed the entrance and flower beds bloomed in vibrant colors. But instead of feeling comforted, Emma felt overwhelmed. The grandeur of the place seemed so far removed from the modest apartments and cramped foster care homes she'd known all her life. "This is where I lived?" Emma asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "It doesn't feel like me." Rachel nodded, understanding her hesitation. "You were very young when you disappeared. This might not feel like home yet, but let's take it slow. Come inside and we'll explore together." As they walked through the house, Rachel pointed out different rooms and shared memories tied to each one. She showed Emma her old bedroom, which had been left untouched since the day she vanished. Toys still sat neatly on shelves and drawings hung proudly on the walls. There was even a tiny handprint preserved in paint on the closet door. Emma ran her fingers over the handprint, marveling at how small it was. "That's mine," she whispered. "Yes," Rachel said softly. "That's your hand. You made that print the week before you disappeared." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she absorbed the weight of what she was seeing. For the first time, the idea that she was Lily didn't feel abstract or distant. It felt real. Standing in this room, surrounded by remnants of her past, she could almost hear echoes of laughter and footsteps that once belonged to her. Later, they sat together in the living room, flipping through photo albums. Rachel paused on a picture of Lily sitting in a sandbox wearing oversized sunglasses and grinning ear to ear. "Do you remember this day?" she asked. Emma studied the photo carefully, shaking her head. "No, but I can imagine it. I can almost feel the sand under my hands and the sun on my face." "That's okay," Rachel reassured her. "Memories are funny things. They don't always come back right away. But sometimes, feelings do. And those feelings remind us who we are." Despite these breakthroughs, Emma struggled with the idea of fully embracing her new identity. She decided to keep using her name professionally, Emma Miller, but privately she allowed herself to think of herself as Lily Carter. It was a compromise that gave her space to process everything without feeling pressured to abandon the life she'd built. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Rachel's penthouse apartment overlooking the city lights, Emma finally voiced her fears. "What if I'm not good enough?" she asked quietly. "What if I disappoint you?" Rachel reached out and took her hand. "Emma, you could never disappoint me. Do you hear me? You're here. That's all that matters. We've already lost so much time. Let's focus on building something new, something stronger." Emma nodded, though tears streamed down her cheeks. I want to make you proud." "You already have," Rachel replied, pulling her into a hug. "Every single day you make me proud." Their journey wasn't without its challenges. Reconnecting after so many years apart required patience and effort from both of them. Emma sometimes felt torn between two worlds, the life she'd known as Emma Miller and the life Rachel offered her as Lily Carter. She worried about losing herself in the process of rediscovery. To help ease the transition, Rachel encouraged Emma to pursue her dreams. When Emma mentioned wanting to study nursing, Rachel supported her wholeheartedly, helping her enroll in classes and providing financial assistance. "You deserve every opportunity to succeed," Rachel told her. "This isn't about replacing who you are. It's about adding to it." In return, Emma introduced Rachel to parts of her world that she hadn't experienced before. She took her to volunteer events, community gatherings, and local coffee shops where people greeted her warmly. Through these experiences, Rachel saw glimpses of the resilient young woman Emma had become, and realized how much she had to learn from her daughter. One particularly meaningful moment came during a charity event Emma organized to raise funds for foster youth. As Rachel watched Emma speak passionately about the importance of supporting children in need, she felt a surge of pride. Her daughter wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. And she was using her experiences to make a difference in the lives of others. After the event, Rachel pulled Emma aside. "That was incredible," she said, her voice filled with admiration. "You inspire me." Emma smiled shyly. "Thanks, Mom," she said, testing the word out cautiously. It felt strange yet comforting, like slipping into a coat that fit perfectly after years of wearing the wrong size. As time passed, their bond deepened. They celebrated milestones together: Emma's acceptance into nursing school, Rachel's successful business ventures, and supported each other through setbacks. Slowly but surely, they began to heal the wounds left by 10 years of separation. One night, as they sat side by side on the couch watching an old movie, Emma turned to Rachel and said, "Thank you." "For what?" Rachel asked, surprised. "For finding me," Emma replied simply. "For never giving up." Rachel wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "I'll always find you, Lily, no matter what." And in that moment, both women knew they were exactly where they were meant to be. Not just as mother and daughter, but as partners in rebuilding a life they thought they'd lost forever. The years that followed were a mix of healing, discovery, and growth for Rachel and Emma. Though they had found each other again, their journey was far from over. Rebuilding a relationship after so much time apart wasn't easy. It required Patience, understanding, and a willingness to face both the joys and the challenges together. Emma continued to balance her two identities, the woman she'd grown up as, Emma Miller, and the child she once was, Lily Carter. To the outside world, she remained Emma, working hard in nursing school and volunteering at local shelters. Privately, however, she embraced being Lily when she was with Rachel. The name felt like a bridge between her past and present, connecting her to a part of herself she hadn't known existed, but now cherished deeply. Rachel supported Emma every step of the way, encouraging her to pursue her dreams while gently helping her uncover more about her childhood. Together, they visited places that held significance for Lily's early years. The park where she used to play, the library where she attended story time, and even the ice cream shop where she always ordered chocolate sprinkles. Each visit brought back fragments of memories, tiny pieces of a puzzle that slowly came together. One summer afternoon, Rachel took Emma to a beach house they used to visit as a family. "This is where we spent our summers," Rachel explained, as they walked along the shore. "You loved building sandcastles and chasing seagulls." Emma bent down to scoop up a handful of wet sand, letting it slip through her fingers. "I can almost picture it," she said, smiling softly. "It feels familiar." "That's because it's part of you," Rachel replied, watching her with pride. "Even if you don't remember everything, these moments shaped who you are." As they sat on the beach watching the waves roll in, Emma opened up about some of the fears she still carried. "Sometimes I worry I'll forget who I was before I knew about Lily," she admitted, "like I'm losing a piece of myself." Rachel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're not losing anything. You're gaining something, a fuller picture of who you are. Being Lily doesn't erase being Emma. It adds to it." Emma nodded thoughtfully, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. For the first time, she realized she didn't have to choose one identity over the other. She could honor both parts of herself and let them coexist. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. They celebrated milestones together. Emma graduating from nursing school, Rachel launching a new business venture, and leaned on each other during difficult times. When Emma struggled with exams or faced setbacks in her studies, Rachel reminded her of her strength and resilience. And when Rachel doubted herself or felt overwhelmed by work, Emma offered words of encouragement and perspective. One evening, as they prepared dinner together in Rachel's kitchen, Emma looked up from chopping vegetables and smiled. "You know," she said, "I never imagined my life turning out this way, but I'm glad it did." Rachel paused mid-stir and turned to her. "What do you mean?" "I mean, finding you, learning about Lily. It's changed everything. For the better. I feel like I finally belong somewhere." Rachel's eyes filled with tears as she crossed the room to hug her daughter tightly. "You've always belonged with me, Lily. Always." Despite the progress they'd made, there were still unanswered questions about Emma's disappearance. Who had taken her? Why had she been left in foster care? These mysteries weighed heavily on both of them, but they chose not to dwell on them too much. Instead, they focused on creating new memories and cherishing the time they had together. One day, while sorting through old boxes in the attic, Emma stumbled upon a scrapbook Rachel had made during Lily's early years. Inside were photos, drawings, and notes documenting every milestone, from her first steps to her first day of kindergarten. As Emma flipped through the pages, she felt a deep connection to the little girl in the pictures. "This is amazing," she said, showing Rachel the scrapbook. "How did you keep track of all this?" "It was important to me," Rachel replied. "Every moment with you felt precious. I wanted to hold on to them forever." Emma hugged the scrapbook to her chest, overwhelmed by emotion. "Thank you for never giving up on me," she whispered. "For keeping these memories alive." Rachel smiled through her tears. "They're your memories too, Lily. And now, we get to make new ones." As time went on, Emma began to see herself not just as a victim of circumstance, but as someone who had overcome incredible odds. She carried her experiences with her, not as scars but as reminders of her strength and resilience. With Rachel, by her side, she learned to embrace her past without letting it define her future. On a crisp autumn morning, Emma stood at the front of a classroom, ready to give her first presentation as a nursing student. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the papers in front of her, but she took a deep breath and began speaking. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. As she looked out at the audience, her eyes met Rachel's, seated proudly in the back row. Later, as they drove home together, Rachel reached over and squeezed Emma's hand. "You were brilliant today," she said. "I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Mom," Emma replied, using the word effortlessly now. "I couldn't have done it without you." Their story wasn't perfect. They still had moments of doubt, frustration, and sadness. But it was theirs. Together, they had turned tragedy into triumph, loss into love, and uncertainty into hope. They had proven that no matter how many years passed or how far apart they were, a mother and daughter could find their way back to each other. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Rachel's penthouse, Emma held the locket in her hand, the same locket that had started it all. "This brought us back together," she said, smiling through tears. "It's like it has magic." Rachel laughed softly, pulling her close. "No, sweetheart. The magic is us. Our love brought us back together." And as they sat there, surrounded by the lights of the city and the warmth of their bond, they knew they had been given a second chance, a rare gift neither would ever take for granted. Their journey was proof that even in the face of unimaginable loss, love could endure, heal, and ultimately triumph.